I do it because I live through my eyes.
So I'm Colleen Kibert, and I'm fortunate to be one of Gloria's closest friends. And when I think of you, I think of honesty. What an honest artist Gloria is, and what an honest friend. And you're as open and frank with your friends as you are with your art. It's just, which for me is my highest compliment that I can give you. And we've been friends for about 34 years. And we started out as friends because a mutual friend felt certain that we would enjoy each other as artists. And there's something very special about having a friend as long as we've been friends, and sharing this life together as artists. Gloria is one of those few women artists, I think, that are able to integrate art into their daily life. She lives it, it's not compartmentalized, and when we're together we live and breathe art.
Right. I was born just before the 1929 Big Depression. And there were many, many, many lean years. I was the third daughter, born to my parents who both were immigrants. And my dad was very proud that he always had his own business. Never made a very good living, or did sometimes and then not other times. And so they were very innovative because it was the Depression also. And they learned how to make do, and to make do beautifully. So I remember when I was 5 years old, there wasn't enough money to buy me a snowsuit. I should say I was born in Chicago. And they took an old gray army blanket and made me a snowsuit, and they trimmed it with red felt. And it actually was quite fashionable, but it wasn't like anyone else's snowsuit. And I had two older sisters who were very good older sisters. They bought me poetry, even there wasn't very much money. They bought me books, and poetry books, and they were almost like surrogate mothers. They were quite a bit older than I was. So I always thought I was an artist. I always felt I was an artist. That was always my interest. But for some, well, it was the time. So when I was in, the only time I ever was noticed in high school, to make money, and also, to save money, and also because I wanted to do it. I designed my own clothes when I was in high school, but I didn't sew them. My mother sewed them for me. And when I finally took a sewing class, I think in my senior year in high school, and that's the only time I ever stood out in high school, the only time, at the end of the semester, there was an assignment to design an original piece of clothing, and I designed a blouse. And she called me up to the front of the class, and I don't think she even said my name. I just remember saying, "Now pay attention, now this girl," she said, "remember her because she's going to be a famous designer." And I guess that gave me some courage. I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't know exactly what an artist was, because at the time, abstract expressionism was just become known, and my idea of art was the Art Institute in Chicago, where it was using oil, and you painted realistic pictures, and I knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to do that, but I wanted to be an artist. And I looked at these other pictures, paintings, and I thought, couldn't anyone do them? You know, is this art? And I can still say, I don't know. I don't know why certain things are called art and are put in museums and why others aren't. Except I think in a way I know, because sometimes it just hits you, and you look at something and you just know in your gut that that's good, and you can't always tell why it is. And I think that's something called having an eye. I don't know. I arrived by train in 1948 to Berkeley on a Tuesday and moved into the dorm. And on a Thursday, there was a dance and a meeting for the new students, whoever the new students were, with President, he was then President Sproul. And so you went to the girls' gym and you went through a receiving line and you met President Sproul and his wife, and you went into the gym and there was a guy there who there was a stag line. They picked the big men on campus for the stag line, so you wouldn't walk in and not have someone to dance with. I don't know what they did with the men, but I guess they took care of them too. So I was very tall and I had high heels on, and they looked around for the tallest person they could find, and his name was Bob Alford. And that was a Thursday, so I arrived on a Tuesday. I met him on a Thursday, and we married the following June. I was 20 years old. I finished college, and I went to work. I should say I didn't ever take any art in college. I took one sculpture class. And I asked myself why. I don't know. I guess I was just dumb. I didn't know. I majored in sociology, psychology, and anthropology. And Bob, then what I did was I went to work to put him through for his PhD. And he was gifted and very successful as a professor. And we moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and by that time I had 3 children. I always did crafts, you know, and that was sort of what women did then. It was whatever you could do on the kitchen table and clear off. So any craft that was available, anything that you could do at that time. There was a time when you could do enameling on metal, when you could buy a little oven and make jewelry. Anyway, I did them all, but I didn't do any art, you know, any fine art. When I was 39 years old, the kids were old enough and we were established enough that I was able to get away and go to a workshop in North Carolina. And I took a class in printmaking there. And it was my first sort of authentic art class, and I was just intrigued with it. And I came back to Madison, and I went to, Bob was teaching there, and I went to the art department there. I took and asked the head of the department if I could register as a graduate student, and he said no. And so I went to the related art department, which was the home economics department, but they called it related art. And they had a class in printmaking, and it was screen printing, and you could only print on cloth. And I took that class, I printed on cloth, and now we're going to go to what happened briefly is that I invented a new art form. And when you see, what happened is I made 2 of these, I think, two of these. And I entered the first one in an art show, and I won first prize. And the Madison, Wisconsin paper, Capital Times, had a picture of me on the front with holding I've Always Lived in a Garden, which is the first piece you're going to see. And it said, Gloria Alford, wife of Professor Robert Alford, won first prize. And this was interesting because I was at a swimming pool, and a woman came up to me and said she was going to open a very upscale furniture store, and would I come and be the person who picked the crafts that would go in that. She thought crafts should go in the store. And I said, sure. And everything sort of happens by accident. So we can now begin. This is called I've Always Lived in a Garden, and so what I did was, in a sense, invent my first piece about how I was going to work. And what I did was take a piece from art history, which is Rousseau's The Garden, and it was during the Vietnam War, and I have surrounded it with black and white images of the city. I was going to have war images, but I decided I didn't do that after all. And so it's printed on cloth, and it's almost like a light velvet. And I did trapunto, which is sewing on it and stuffing it from behind. And so I called that I've Always Lived in a Garden, because I felt in a way that my life was a garden. And that's that's the story. So what I did is take an image from art history, do a version of it, and then comment on it. And so I then had my style. This is ego like a bizarre balloon rises ever upward. So ego is a symbol, the man on a horse is a symbol for pride, and ego is a big balloon. And the blue plastic is a continuation of the blue sky, and the man on the horse is being lofted up by his ego. the pride is being off, and that's that story. So what I did was take art historical things and did my version of them, and I got into plastic, and because cloth is not considered art. You can make the most beautiful quilt, the most beautiful robe that she has on, and that's craft. Don't tell me. I don't know the difference, but somehow they say there is a difference. And I wanted to be an artist, not a craftsperson, and so I had to do something that could hang on a wall. Maybe that's true, or sit on a table. Anyway, so that was my second piece. This is the wave of the past future. So this is Hokusai's wave. And this, you can see the difference is now I've gotten into molding the plastic and printing on cloth. And the woman, this is the wave of the past future. So the woman is about to be engulfed by the wave, but that she's a very strong swimmer because turns out that I used the woman who was the championship swimmer when I was in college. So that's who the swimmer is. That's called rock dancers. And it's taken from an African rock painting. Two computerized, this is when I finally got into the computer, two computerized renderings were made of the image, one of the line and one of texture. These were printed off register on the covering plastic in order to suggest movement. This image comes off a rock painting. This is the Amazon and the escape of the unicorn. So how I made this a tapestry. I did a computerization of the Millefleur tapestry, and in my tapestry, instead of the Virgin catching the unicorn, she's the queen, she's the Amazon, but the unicorn escapes anyway into the present. Oh, I should also mention I did these in editions. It wasn't just one of a kind. It's called Harmonica Cosmic and refers to the Greek myth of the universe and combines reference to birth and fire. According to the ancient Greeks, the earth was a solid stationary sphere in the center of a kind of Chinese box of 7 transparent revolving spheres, in the center of which there was a visible planet. The sounding tones of these 7 made music of the spheres. The soul descending from heaven to be born on earth picked up the qualities of those spheres so that our souls and bodies are compounds of the very elements of the universe and sing, so to say, the same song. And so there's some of the rings are printed on the cloth and some of them are printed on the plastic. It's called Mesolithic Computerized. It's based on a Mesolithic rock painting found in Spain, depicting a hunting episode of deer driven toward a line of 4 archers found at Los Caballos, Castellón. In 1973, a PDP 1120 computer read the pattern of lights and darks and translated each dot into one of the 8 different symbols graphically representing various shadings. The computer readout, blown up, is printed on butyrate plastic over the silkscreen fabric of part of the original painting. A frame of acrylic is also printed with the computer symbols. This is a contemporary stela. And a stela is what the Egyptians would paint outside of their resting place, and it showed the deceased and all the things he would take with him in his afterlife. And then I made a mold of all the contemporary things, and if you're technical at all, what was very difficult to find something that would pull and show a narrow pull and a deep pull without breaking the plastic. So anyway, so there were a lot of technical difficulties, and I didn't solve these by myself. I just found people. If you get an idea, you just find someone to help you do it, and that's what I did. And so I superimposed. I had all these little toys, and you can see back then. There's a little record player there on there. You can remember it was a little flat. You've grown up, so remember a little flat record player with a little, and the old the TV, which is on a stand, and you know, so all those things are from the 70s. All those little toys. Oh, that's the head of the Jaded Princess, and I could say that took me a year to make, and the reason I did it, I mean, why I got the idea is that there was a thaw between China and the United States, and they allowed the first jade burial suit to come to California, and it was at the de Young Museum. And I saw it, and I was very excited, and I had seen my first computer chip, because Bob's sister was selling computers. And I saw it, and I said, my goodness, it looks just like jade. I'm going to make a copy of that. Well, it took a whole year. The Ford department store was going out of business in Watsonville. And it was also the time when there were a lot of murders here in Santa Cruz of women. And I got I got the department store dummy and brought it home, but it was in pieces, and it was in the back of the car, so I had this dismembered body in the back of the car. Brought it home, I covered her with cotton, wrapped her in a sheet, and I had to cut all those chips. Oh, I found those, got them from Wendy, and the headpieces are actually bomb detonators. And it took a whole year. I worked with a student putting this piece together, and it's a pretty good replica. People have come in and they think, oh, how do you get that? So that's the head. We'll show the rest of the body. There she is. And I guess you've all seen her. So I think if I have a reputation in art, that's probably the piece that has given me whatever reputation I have. I should go back a little bit to tell you how things happen. They don't happen in a straight line. When I went to work in this furniture store, that's when the museum found me and bought a piece, which was really fantastic. But the other thing that happened is I said to Diane, I don't really like turning people down. You know, I didn't want to judge people who were coming in. What we really need is exhibition posters. Now remember, this was the 70s, so this was a good thing to show with modern furniture. So I was so brave. I flew to New York and I got wholesale exhibition posters. And Bob said, if you're going to New York, you take your work with you and go to the galleries. Well, even then, I bought a case to put them in. I had 2 pieces. And I was going home that same day. And I thought, oh, well, I'd lived in New York for a year, and there was one gallery on Madison Avenue called Gempel and Weitzenhofer. And I thought, well, I'll just go in. And I went in, and there's top floors where they showed all the fine paintings. The bottoms were multiples, and I did these in multiples. And I went in, and there was a woman from Smith, a young, beautiful woman from Smith. Usually the women in these galleries, not the owners, but the women who are selling things are from Smith College. And I said, can I show you my work? And she said, do you have an appointment? I said, no. And I said, but I'm going home to Madison. And for some reason, she took pity on me, and she said, okay, I'm busy, but put it over there. And then she looked at him and said, I'll take everything you do. And so I got real excited. I couldn't do this now, and I called up the Museum of Modern Art. And I wanted to see if they would buy one of my pieces. And I got through to someone, and I said, I'm going, you know, Gempel and Weitzenhofer just took my work, and I'm flying home to Madison, Wisconsin this afternoon. And she says, Madison, Wisconsin? I got my degree in Madison, Wisconsin. Come right over. And so I went over, and they stuck me in the library, and they took my pieces, and I must have sat there, I don't know, a half hour, 40 minutes, and they came back. But while I was sitting there, I took a book off the shelf, and it was about hokusai. And that was how I decided to do the hokusai wave. And they came and they said, well, we're very amused, you know, when you do more, do come back. Well, of course, it would be impossible now. So everything that's happened to me has happened as an outsider, by chance, and not by following any path particularly. I mean, yeah, I've worked hard, I mean, really hard, but it's all somehow chance. Things come together or don't come together. This is the nuclear family geode. So with the condition of the nuclear family in the United States, and I guess other places too, I thought I would make this rock, and I'd use dolls, and I was going to cast it, but it has never been cast. So it's a contemporary family with dolls kind of crumbling away. Solar sound sculpture. I did that right before the Jaded Princess, and so when it's exposed to light, you can't see on that. Can you see that there are figures dancing there on the, and then there's light sensors and solar cells, and there's dance notation, the Laban system of dance notation that's printed on the tower. So, and when it's exposed to very strong light, it could be sunlight if you put it outside, or just real strong spotlights, you can interact with it and make music. And I got a lot of what happens. You get an idea, and you try to get people to help you. And I went to the Exploratorium, and I got people to help me do this. And someone came to the house who knew something about it, and I had a whole list of the people who helped me. And he said, "Oh, Larry Shaw. He was back then the head of whatever it was at the Exploratorium. Oh, he's retired." But I'm still around.
You call a painting by its creator's name, a Georgia O'Keeffe, a Frida Kahlo, an Alford, because you subscribe to the adage that the artist and the work are one. That's what makes it moving, when you feel the artist through the work, as if she just finished creating it.
I met this architect. I took a watercolor class, and he was absolutely the best person in the watercolor class. It was you go out in the summer and take a class. And I was absolutely the worst. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. But we got to talking, and we became friends, and he was an inventor. And I don't know how I got the idea, but I said, let's do a solar sculpture. So this is the way it looks closed. His name is Lloyd Turner. The way it looks closed. It's on the porch. The next one. Oh, there's a tube of Freon in the base, which was illegal now, and it's like a popsicle stick. When it heats up, the rod goes up and opens the pods. And the next one shows it fully open. There it is. It isn't big like that. It was really a small one. It just looks big. And he has since taken it and disassembled it to get the Freon to do something with. I don't know what, but I do have the pictures. So that was my last techie piece. I think being a painter, you're competing with all of art history, and in order to get noticed or to get the stamp that, yeah, you're an artist, I had to do something completely unique. So the hardest thing was to start painting. So I did all sorts of things before I started to paint. That was the very last thing that I did. The next thing I did was handmade paper. And you make the paper, you dye the paper, you mold the paper, and so I did a lot of fans. These are pretty good size. So we'll see. The next will be a bunch of fans. I combined it with bamboo. It was nice because it was mushy after working with that other stuff, which was so demanding, with paper. I must have done paper for at least 5 years. You know, what period?
Early 80s?
Moved here in 74. I finished The Jaded Princess in 1977. And that was my last piece, and that, so.
75 to 85?
Later.
No, it was later. That because after 77, you know, I'm sorry, and I did.
After Holland.
After Holland. After.
Paper after you were in Holland. Leiden.
Yeah, I remember I was in Haydn, and I was doing paper when I was in Leiden. Yeah, I was doing paper in Leiden. Thank you, Colleen.
It has to be.
I did paper for a long time.
80s, about 1985.
Okay, I have an historian here who's going to tell you. Okay. You'll notice that the last thing I've done is painting, because painting you're competing with all of art history. I'm most attached to the earliest work, and this, because that was what really, that's what, when I finally was acknowledged as an artist, you know, when I could acknowledge to myself, you know, that I wasn't just fooling around. That's the
transitional kind of phase, and you see it as a transition in your
well,
path,
this the paper?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I love paper after plastic. You could mush around with it, you know, and if it didn't work, you could put it back and beat it up again and work with it again, where plastic and computers, all that was totally unforgiving, and I needed a lot of technical help, and I was always able to get it. I mean, it was just wonderful. I don't know if I could do that now. I'm pretty sure I couldn't. And so this was just the opposite of working with the plastic. Oh, so this is taking paper and working flat, and the stones and underwater. And there I am with a friend, Joan, making paper here in the studio. We made a piece together.
So you're making the paper?
Oh, you make the paper. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You make it, you dye it, and then you press out all the water. It's technical. That's the piece we did.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Okay, we are now into painting. So, as you can see, it's a painting. I went from paper to painting, and that I can tell you was the hardest thing, because you're competing with thousands and thousands and thousands of painters. And I never, what? Oh, acrylic. Acrylic. Oh, I should say I did monoprints too, but I don't think they have, you know, a monoprint is a one-of-a-kind kind of thing. Now that's a wave, and I thought of it as a wave when I started working on it.
Do you mostly paint in your studio?
Yeah, I only paint in my studio. Right where you're standing, I paint right here in this room. Because painting is almost like a meditation. It is a meditation. It is. And usually I'm alone. I'm just alone in here, and time just goes, and I think, why am I doing this? You know, why am I spending my time like this? And I can't really say why. It's just what I want to do, what feeds me. I call that melting snow, and I didn't know that when I did it, that it was melting snow, but when I got done, I decided that's what it was. That's also one that I've saved. It's in the living room. No, it's in the kitchen. That's in the kitchen. I think I tend to like winter, if what they would call, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a spring person. Probably an autumn person. Probably I have a preference for the kind of colors I wear. This one I think I call spring. It feels like spring in a brook melting and stuff, but again, I didn't know it until it happened. And you don't even know where you've been when you're done. Oh, I was using different kind of paint that I experimented with. They were more like fluorescent paints, but that isn't exactly the right. But they have a very different feeling. So I did a window series And I didn't think they were too successful. I did several of them and then left those paints. They're all windows. Here's an early lady in the line. I never got, this is watercolor was before I was painting. I really would love to be a watercolorist, but I never got the control for it. I never got good enough at it. They're much less forgiving than acrylics. There's the lady in the line. And so that's that. I used to have a cat called Kiki, and I would sit and read in my chair. It was very meaningful to me. That's a Matisse and a Diebenkorn combined. It's it's combining two famous artists, Matisse and a Diebenkorn. That's a fairly recent one. They often name things, but mostly because people want to know, what's the name of this piece?
What's the name of that one?
I don't remember, but I think it had a name. And that's kind of a waterfall. I should say that I'm not really a nature painter, but lots of times I do things that remind me of nature. And I see hills and a waterfall there. You can see whatever you want. What do you see?
I see a sunset.
Yeah.
And a road. And
Yeah. What was that?
A fox crossing the street.
Yeah. I do believe that that's reversed because there's one up there. This is actually a different one, but it's very similar. I think it's upside down. No? But you can see there's one up there.
Yeah.
That's the only time. And I think I was trying to do that again.
Huh?
And I think that is reversed. But I'm glad to see it isn't too similar. Good. This was a little different in the sense that it's a fun thing to do. I poured, and then I went back in, and everywhere there's white, I blocked out what I poured and made the composition. So the composition wasn't painted as intended. It evolved after I looked at it and said, I've got to block this out and this out and this out. So there's so many different ways to do things. That's an older one, way older. I'm sorry they're not in a good order.
So how long
I tried.
have you been into paint now?
Robert, how long have I been into paint? Many, many years. Yeah, I guess. 85. My friend Colleen says 1990. Yeah, that's when I really like. That was a card. I should just say about my process is that I don't have a process, in that I never had I don't even know what colors I'm going to use. I just make a mark, and then I make another mark, and then I make another mark, and then I'm just surprised. I don't start out with an idea of what I'm going to do. So
How do you know when they're done?
that's very good. Sometimes how I know when they're done is I used to have a friend who doesn't live here anymore named Kathy. Kathy would sit over here, and she was a representational oil painter, and my easel was over there, and I'd be painting away. And her job was to look up and say, Gloria, stop. Now, Kathy's not here anymore, and there's nobody to tell me to stop. And that's a very good question, when is it done, especially with abstracts. I didn't intend that to be a cliff and water and houses up there, but it sure is. So something, but once I start to see something, then I start, I follow it. This is an interesting thing. What happens when I want to stop, when I'm working on something, and it isn't going, and I'm working on it, and I can't stop, I tear it into 4 pieces, and I put it in a drawer. Then I come into the studio sometime, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and I start rifling through all the things I have in a drawer. And this was a quarter of a piece of something, and I looked, and I said, that reminds me of a night kitchen. And so the only thing I did was add Everything was there. The only thing I added was the black. I put this little bit of red here, so I made a table. I made this little bit of black to make a teapot, just this teeny bit to suggest a chair, and made the profile, put on the headpiece, and did the bathrobe. And I love that piece. I just love that piece. So, but it was like, if you look at clouds and you see things in the clouds, you could look at a painting and see things and put things there that you never knew were there. It's just, watercolor. I have to say, yes. I was working in someone's home, learned this was watercolor. She was very good. She's died. So these were the stairs, and I just put some purses on it at her house and painted these purses. We're going now back to before I was doing painting. I tried watercolor. I just wasn't very good at it. It really took a leap. The Lady and the Fish, that's a print. I took one printmaking up at the university here. And that was a long time ago, and see how young I look. Oh, this is just to prove I could be representational. This is Robert's daughter. This is a picture of Robert's daughter that I painted, and I had a picture of her in a McDonald's, I think, in Paris. And so this is Hannah. Because people think you do abstract because you can't do the other, but that's not true. This is my gold period. Gold and a lot of texture. You notice I'm using a lot of texture and a lot of gold and silver paint. That's it. I think this is sort of the end. They might.
Gloria on her birthday, or Looking for Love in Merriam-Webster. Beautiful, splendid, magnificent, delightful, charming, appealing, says the dictionary. And that's how I start. But I hear her say, make it less glorious and more Gloria. Imperious, composed, skeptical, serene, lustrous, irreverent. She's marked like glory. She attracts glory. Glory, I say, glory, glory. Is there a hallelujah in there, she asks, when I read her lines 1 and 2? Not yet, I say, looking up from my books. She protests. Writing a poem isn't the same as really attending to me. That's true. But it's for your birthday, I say. Pouting, playfully cross. That's the price you pay when your love's a poet. She has chestnut-colored hair, old-fashioned Clara Bow lips, moist brown eyes, arms outstretched, head thrown back. She glides toward me and into her 7th decade. Her name means to adore, to rejoice.
Now my 8th decade.
To be jubilant, to magnify and honor as in worship, to give or ascribe glory. My love, oh Gloria, I do.